Cheers to health and happiness. Hopefully, you can see my smoothie in here. Very delicious. I want to invite you um, into this really cool conversation I had recently with Professor Johanna Sophia. She is an international speaker, coach, author. She's taught at Yale and Columbia universities. Columbia, is in my hometown, so I could rep for them too, even though I'm a NYU alum. She's authored books and articles, built schools and businesses, a food manufacturing company called Joanna's Raw Foods PBC, and she consults with organizations and governments in matters of self healing with food, new forms of education, sustainability, raising confident kids, and empowering women over 50. She has appeared in health documentaries such as The Search for Sustainability. She most loves her career as a successful mother of confident, healthy children. She founded Joanna's Raw Foods PBC together with her then teenage children. JRFC Coaching, which is her company, includes the Super Happy Body course, which there will be a link for in the show notes, Fitness Over 50, and other certificate programs. She currently lives in upstate New York. All right. Thank you so much, Professor Johanna Sophia, for joining us on the Raw Food Health Empowerment Podcast. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic in spite of all the mayhem, because you and I know why, because I've been on a raw food diet now for 17 years, 17 and a half, coming
Wow.
up on 18. And it just opens this whole new field of energy and energetic life, right? And ability.
Yes. Yeah, 17 and a half years. That is a long time. What inspired you to go raw vegan?
Well, I have to backtrack a little bit. I knew from a very young age that you could heal cancer and other physical, so-called incurable diseases, because there was a little book circulating at the time I lived in Germany,
Mhm.
and there was a little book going around that has now been translated into many languages, has a million downloads and or purchases, called The Cure for All Cancers by the natural healer Broyce, who was not a doctor.
Mhm.
And that was a 6-week juice diet. So I kind of always had that in the back of my mind, that if anything ever happened to me, I knew how to cure it. And I was kind of very much into healthy eating, salads, etc. But then I also wanted to be normal. And then throughout my entertainment career, being on stage and in movies and all of that, I just wanted to be normal and eat the fancy stuff that everybody thought was the creme de la creme, and even then I lived in Africa, as you may know, for 4 years, and learned a lot about that culture, the Zimbabwean culture, the Shona culture, with my first husband, who's Shona. And so I kind of lived the healthier versions that I always thought of the respective diet that was there.
Mhm.
But I realized in retrospect that those were not really doing that well for me either. I still had kidney infections in Zimbabwe. I had endometriosis. And in retrospect, I know it was because I was eating all that healthy meat. It was so
Mm.
healthy, right? and 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 then 17 years ago, I was in a relationship. Unfortunately, my first marriage didn't last, neither did my second. In a relationship with somebody who was brilliant, but very abusive. And I didn't get to sleep, and I didn't eat the vegan way that I already had implemented with my children. That was, but a lot of cooked stuff. And And after 2 nights of not sleeping and being highly stressed out, I had a stroke.
Oh, wow.
So I keeled over and I was out of my body, and I was talking to my body and to my brain and saying, you got to get back in there. You got to get back in there.
Mhm.
I have young children. I promise I will live the healthiest life ever. And that's when I made the decision, okay, now is the time to go raw, because I knew already that that was the healthiest, most healing, most self-healing way to live. And the proof is in the pudding. I haven't had anything since.
That's
So,
awesome. What
yeah.
a story.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm curious, you know, because you said you had a stroke. You knew that raw veganism was like the healthiest way to eat, but it took a stroke for you to really commit to making the change. Why do you think that is? Because I feel like a lot of folks wait till they're in an emergency situation before they, do what they need to do.
Yes. I ascribe that to the need for us. We live in this time in history. We live in these cultures as they are. Humanity is going through a slow evolution toward self-consciousness, toward the understanding of actually being responsible for our health and our body and for the planet. It's a slow evolution. And I just didn't want to be that far ahead of the game. And I just wanted to be normal and integrate and not have everybody say, oh, you're eating carrots and salad all day. So, and it took that shock for me to say, hey, I can make that delicious and awesome too. And that's what I did. That's why I invented Johanna's Raw Foods and all the gourmet stuff that I make in the raw, because my explanation for that is, with those purist raw foodists that are partially my friends also, who are just saying, oh, there's something cooked in there, or, soy sauce isn't cooked and cashews aren't raw and so forth. So I found that humans are inherently creative beings. That's what makes us humans. So all across the globe, never mind in which culture I came, there's this need to create beautiful, highly delicious food and a great variety of food. Tell me a culture that doesn't celebrate life with created food. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
nobody just grabs an apple here and there and a carrot here and there and as a culture lives on that. We celebrate life by preparing beautiful food. So, and I've figured I can do all that in the raw as well. And that's how I got to creating. And literally for almost 2 years, I created raw food dinners once a month for a fancy restaurant. So this was a dinner with appetizers, soup, main dish, and dessert
Mm-hmm.
every time, or a smoothie or a special drink, and everything in the raw, and often modeled on existing dishes. For example, the Asian meal would have, the typical Asian little appetizers and desserts, and then the zoodles, zucchini noodles with the peanut sauce made not out of peanuts, and the spicy veggies integrated, et cetera, including my favorite meal was the junk food meal. And it was all from hot dogs to Twinkies,
That
but
you
made
made raw?
Twinkies.
Oh,
Twinkies
okay.
were the super plastic food of the 50s and 60s. It's literally a sweet roll with
Mhm.
a fluffy cream in it.
Yeah.
It never decomposes. You can leave it on your windowsill. It always stays soft. It doesn't
Did you
decompose.
make a raw alternative to that?
Exactly. So
That
my Twinkies are amazingly delicious. They're chocolate Twinkies. So the dough includes chocolate, raw cacao, of course, in
yeah.
case, and the filling is coconut and um,
That's smart.
so,
That's real
and
smart.
very, very fluffy, and it's just, the whole thing is incredibly delicious.
Yeah.
That idea that you can make healthy versions of any conceived product that is in our food cultures.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And those raw vegan transition foods, I think, are really helpful for folks to get off of food addictions and to kind of bring some people in on the journey with them. You had said before that you wanted to be seen as normal as, you know, have that community still, even though you knew raw foods was the healthier way to eat, but it took like a stroke in a emergency situation to really make you really fully commit. So when you decided to fully commit and you were creating these foods, those people that you were concerned would look at you strange. Did they, you know, how did they react to your transition?
Actually, with much more awe and admiration than I would have thought. So especially because I think also especially because then I started making cakes and mousses, you know, when I started, raw cacao wasn't even yet a product that you could access. So it was carob mixes and but because others started really loving the stuff I was making, and I was yeah, and any meat and potato person today can eat my raw chocolate cake, and you know, and it is awesome, or my raspberry cheesecake. And yeah, so the again the flavors, the culture around it, the beauty of how it looks, all of that contributes to accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, one has to be in here so like at ease with oneself, you know, not embarrassed or like, oh, sorry, I can't eat that. That never happened anymore. Sorry. I would just make fun of myself. Oh, I'm the crazy eater. Don't mind me. You know, I'm just eating my little salad leaves and you know, in gatherings or in. So yeah, trying not to preach and just to do is still, you know, not that it's always easy, right? Because when we see people suffer, and we want to say it would be so easy to get rid of all your suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I would mock people and I would say, well, you don't need to be suffering. Obviously, you're in love with your suffering because I could teach you how to not suffer. And then we realize everybody has to go through their own journey, and when they're ready, they'll come.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Truth. So you started off eating that way. Has your diet changed at all on this raw lifestyle? Like, has it gotten simpler? Has it gotten more complex? Like, what kind of meal combinations are you making these days after 17 years?
All of the above. I still love making very complex meals, especially when I have potlucks or inviting guests and events, or when I cater. I don't really have a catering company, but when I make food for other people, I like to be complex and awe-inspiring. And of course, when I'm making food for myself, we get sort of used to making a few things. Like last night, I felt like I really need some greens. So what do I have in my fridge? And because, you know, once you understand that we have this incredible ability to be creative,
Mm-hmm.
I can just look in my fridge, and there was a bunch of cilantro. There was a box of baby spinach, and there's lemon and orange, and what else did I put in there? And I knew I had garlic and sunflower seeds, and what else did I put in there? Almonds. Yeah, because I normally don't make pesto with almonds, but I had just recently decided I want to try more stuff with almonds, and I have the source of reasonably priced, really raw almonds. So I made a big bunch of pesto out of the cilantro, the spinach, some sunflower seeds, almonds, garlic, a little Celtic sea salt. What else did I put in there? Cayenne pepper, and a little bit of olive oil, very little. But still, I use all those condiments, sometimes even roasted sesame oil, just for the flavors. And I made this, I literally ate a whole bowl of that pesto. You know, other people put a spoonful on their noodles. I ate the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was invigorating enough, because this time is so stressful right now with everything I'm doing.
Yeah.
That I may not get enough sleep, but at least I put those extra greens. And of course, garlic is as you know, is a cleanser and healer. and there it was. And when I woke up 5 hours later in the morning, I felt fresh and rejuvenated and not exhausted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's like the biggest thing I love about raw foods is it's life-giving, you know? Energy, if you're looking for energy, and boy, 2020 has been exhausting, I think, for everybody. So now is a great time to get into raw foods, you know, just to tap into an energy source to help you through those tough times, even when, like, with stuff that's not even food related, it's just tugging on your emotions or your mental state, you know, long day of work. You hit that lunchtime period when it's a raw lunch, your experience for the afternoon is just so different, you know, compared to having
Mhm.
a cooked lunch. So what does balance in your diet and lifestyle look like for you these days, you know, with everything that's going on?
Well, some of my old raw food friends don't like to hear this, but it's greens and cacao are the things that I always have in something. So because it's the I and I guess it has to do with where we are in our own physical inherited body.
Yeah.
I have a heart murmur that also played a role in my whole, maybe vulnerability to all sorts of health issues before I turned raw. Um, so very low blood pressure. So I tend to be cold and tend to be um, low hemoglobin, which means slightly anemic. Um, so I know all these things. So I work toward putting a lot of hemoglobin forming and calcium and magnesium and potassium into everything.
Mm.
So lots of raw greens and lots of dishes with cacao, including I make a beet chocolate burger, and it's a spicy raw burger that has cacao in it, a little bit similar to when the Mexicans put cacao in their mole sauce. I
Okay.
don't know whether you're familiar. Um, so yeah, um, but then I also make dishes like I make these like mashed potato dishes with mushroom gravy, and they are made out of celeriac, um, parsnip, and then sometimes also cauliflower, cashews or walnuts or both, and then spices and a little salt and lemon juice and orange juice, and always fresh, always everything organic. And I
Mm-hmm.
smash that up in the Vitamix without any water, and it makes this thick mash that is
Mm-hmm.
very, very satisfying and very good, especially after I exercise a lot and I run. So you need all that potassium and magnesium for your muscle tissue, especially as you age. And
Mm-hmm.
67 right here.
Wow.
So yeah, I started expanding my runs in my 60s.
Yeah.
So I ran my first half marathon at 64, and I have to work on more of those. I look
That's
forward.
so cool. That is so cool. So you're running on Raw at 67. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. And you know, I've learned because, you know, my mom is in her late 60s. My
Hmm.
mother-in-law, she's, you know, up there in age, and I've learned, like, you know, when you go through menopause as a woman, things change, especially with your bones, you know. And so all the stuff that you're mentioning about how you're filling your diet with these minerals and nutrients, key, you know, when you're in that transition stage and when your hormones are changing and the body is changing. So
Yeah.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
I need to mention that, of course, normally adequate rest and sleep is incredibly important. This is just this crunch time because I'm doing this summit feasting on fabulous foods, how to create fun, harmonious family festivities, which is especially difficult in this time, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about that. Tell us about this program.
um, it's it's like a online 1 day show with 10 speakers, and every speaker talks comes from their angle to that topic, to the topic of how can we make celebrations joyful and how can we overcome family tensions, especially if we eat differently from others. And so these mitigating notions and the inner approach. So there's two people also on the summit who actually teach us and give us a meditation in those interviews. And I love both of them. One is Dr. Will Tuttle. I don't know whether you're familiar with the World Peace Diet. Yes.
Yeah.
His famous book, The World Peace Diet. Yeah, he was just telling me it's now translated into 17 languages. Wow. And it's still selling strong worldwide, The World Peace Diet. So he's playing us live a piece of improvisation that he talks over, so that is like a musical meditation. Mm-hmm. And the other meditation is from somebody who's not very well known on the internet, but nationwide speaker, and his book is Maximum Security. He was a Wall Street millionaire, then got into large drug deals and got incarcerated. Mm. And in incarceration and maximum security, he one day has this inspiration and begins to meditate. And he then discovers there's an ashram near the prison, and somebody from the ashram comes in and teaches who wants to, more meditation. And so he does that, and then he begins to teach others while he's still incarcerated for many years. Mm-hmm. And he develops this very deep meditation that very quickly releases all anxiety, and it's just, for me, it works every time. Mm-hmm. I'm doing that live with him, talking us through. So in that interview, and he goes around the nation and teaches corporations and prisons and all sorts of institutions and schools and juvenile groups, how to be authentic and feel that we are free, never mind the walls around us. So it's an incredible.
That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing, and definitely timely with everything that's going on.
Let me just also mention his name. His name is Alan Gompers. Alan Gompers. And his website is alangompers.com. And the book, again, Maximum Security. This is actually streaming live or going live for free on October 1st. And if that's already gone for you when you're hearing this, and it's restreaming as a replay on October 8th. That's
so Sunday. You mean November 1st?
Oh, of course, November 1st and yes. November 8th.
And November 8th. Okay.
Thank you. Yes. Tells you how far back I am.
October flew by, so I understand. Seriously. So November 1st it's live, and November 8th is the replay?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right.
Well, cool. The interviews are pre-recorded, so it's not live interactive, but of course everybody can be contacted and connected with if one wants to. And there's all sorts of gifts that the speakers provide that people can also get for free. Recipes and I just interviewed a young woman in Germany who was my student here in the US and then went and developed her own raw food product line. And, it has amazing recipes, both raw and cooked vegan. So, yeah.
Very cool. And if people want to connect with you one-on-one, where can they find you and connect with you online?
JohannasRawFoods.com. One more time, JohannasRawFoods.com. People tend to forget those S's after Johanna and after food. Mm-hmm. So JohannasRawFoods.com. Yeah. But awesome. You can also just search Professor Johanna Sophia and you'll find all sorts of lectures and interviews and speeches.
Great. Yes. And for all of you listening, all these links will be in the show notes. Thank you so much, Professor Johanna, for joining us. We look forward to tuning in on this seminar, these days of inspirational messages from you and your colleagues, and learn more about how to really connect the dots on our self care practice and raw foods and that whole journey. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored and I look forward to doing more. Beautiful. And I will vote just because you have.
That's great. Yes. Awesome.